Hello and welcome to Global Sanctuary for Elephants podcast, Global Rumblings. Global Sanctuary for Elephants, or GSE for short, is a non-profit organization with a mission to create vast safe spaces for captive elephants where they are able to heal physically and emotionally, often from very traumatic pasts. I'm your host, Nadia Mari, and I'll be taking you to the lush jungle of the Mato Grosso region in central Brazil, home of GSE's initial project, Elephant Sanctuary Brazil. Currently home to 5 female Asian elephants, lovingly referred to as the girls. Hello everyone, welcome back. Thank you for tuning in again this week for a new episode of Global Rumblings. It's lovely to have you with us again. Today we'll be catching up on current events at the Sanctuary, talking about Mara and Bambi, Maia, Rana and of course Guille, what they've been up to, how they're doing. So let's head over to Brazil to say hi to Kat and Scott. Hi you two.
Hi Nadia.
Hey Nadia, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you? Still rainy season?
It is the heart of rainy season.
No weather talk.
No, it applies to elephants. It is rainy and cool and cloudy and misty and muddy and wet and saturated, and all the girls are exfoliating beautifully and they're turning pink and their noses are almost white and their toes are nice and shiny and they're covered in dirt and mud, and then the rain all washes it off and another layer of skin comes off and they are celebrating every day.
A beauty spa sounds like a lovely place to be. Well, it is a lovely place to be. You have had a lot on your plates. That's probably the understatement of the year since announcing that Puppy and Kenya, your first 2 African elephants, are being relocated to the Sanctuary. So your workload, which normally is superhuman anyway, must have gone to infinity and beyond. So an information for our listeners that we have actually decided to change the release date of our podcast. So it will be not bi-weekly, but 3-weekly, tri-weekly. I should have looked this up before. Well, I'll say tri-weekly, if it comes to bi-weekly being 2 weeks. So we will be airing every 3 weeks now to give Kat and Scott and the entire team at the Sanctuary, some room to breathe.
That would require it being once every 6 months. I was
actually impressed that she said it's busy as of late. Wait a minute. The last 10 years have been at this speed. So,
no,
but they've been even crazier now.
Initially, we had a couple of years where it was a little more mellow than this.
Okay, the last 8 years
All right.
versus the last year.
That might be accurate.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, was I going to say it's just for the next couple of months? But it's like when you move out of your flat after 20 years and then you sort of see, the light bulb that's hanging in the toilet. I never got around to putting a lampshade on it. So we'll stick to every 3 weeks, if that's tri-weekly, if that's correct. Send us an email to podcast@globalelephants.org. But if it's right or if it's a mistake. So yes, let's talk today about your 5 female Asian elephants. The groups are at the moment, if I remember correctly, Bambi and Maia, Rana and Mara, and then Guille, like a little satellite around the two herds, I'll say. So how are they doing? Let's start with, I don't know, you choose.
You can't look at me for this one. I am not with them even a tiny fraction of as
Kat
much
needs
as
to
you
get unlocked from the office and to go spend time with more elephants, which will hopefully happen.
Trying to rescue other elephants then.
Hopefully happen when Africans come. You'll almost be able to see them from the house. So maybe that'll change. So everyone's doing exceedingly well. I kind of lightheartedly talked about the mud and the rain and the dirt and happy shiny elephants, but they really are. There's a video this morning that'll be posted sometime soon in social media of Rana calling Mara and then rumbling more, and Bambi responding from the other side, and then Mara coming over, and Mara started squeaking and touching her with her foot and putting her head down, and we just see a lot of vocalization with everybody right now. With both groups throughout the night, vocalizing a lot. There was something else going on earlier today that I was bringing Mara and Hana back towards the barn so we could do some foot soaks with Hana for a few days and switch the yards that the girls are in. And they were rumbling, and on the other side, as they were rumbling, you could hear rumbles from Bambi and Maia from the other side. So there's a lot of vocalization, a lot of communication, a lot of celebrations. Guille, there's another video that'll be posted to social media sometime soon of her going through her little repertoire of vocalizations the other day, which was quite charming.
She's definitely, I think, one of them that is shifting the most right now and coming. Although, I mean, everything is always constantly in motion. I think she's definitely shifting a lot over the past few months.
Yeah, she's, I wouldn't say maturing a little bit, but it's different than maturing. I think just their relationships are maturing, and even though she still gets hit and kicked by Bambi on a regular basis when she's trying to come over, and even if she's trying to come over respectfully, these
are gentle. This is totally, we've mentioned it before, like that little kid sticking their finger like in your face. That's like, I'm not touching you, and she kind of prods Bambi a little bit. And Bambi gives her a little whap in response, but it's nothing.
But she did it the other day where I was trying to do Bambi's eye drops, and I needed her to turn around. She was leaned in along the fence on her left-hand side. I needed her to turn around so I could do her right eye. And instead of turning around, she just walked backwards until she bumped into Guille and then kicked her belly. And Guille stood there for a second, and then she started rumbling. And as soon as she started rumbling, then Bambi started rumbling. And then it turned into a lot of nice play behavior between the two of them and a lot of nice socialization. And Bambi being really sweet and silly and light as well. So Guille is instigating that play a little bit more. The one video of her going through her repertoire, that was her instigating it again. It wasn't the other girls. A lot of times the other girls will start and she'll join in, but we see her starting to initiate it a little bit more. But yesterday there was also a time with in the mud, in the rain, where Maia and Bambi were kind of in the mud hole a little bit. It's a little depression. And Guille was kind of queen of the mountain, and then going from one to the next, like pushing on Maia and then pushing on Bambi and pushing on Maia and pushing on Bambi head to head. It was all sweet and soft and light, but it's just charming to see that dynamic. And we've talked about it before, and I think Guille has had a huge impact on the levity of the other girls, because she just brings that youthfulness, that youthful spunk, and keeps the old ladies on their toes a little bit, keeps them...
So is she still moving between the two herds, or have you seen them all together, all five of them, or how does that work?
We haven't in a while. What we saw after Mara started getting a little bit more aggressive to Bambi, and we started separating them out on a regular basis, when Guille was with Mara and Hana were a little bit less settled, and Guille also was not as grounded. So more often than not, she's been, actually the vast majority of the time, she's been with the other two. We've talked about trying to open up a little bit more and seeing how that goes. But we still see a little bit more insecurity right now with Mara and Hana. And I don't know if that's because of where, Hana's feet are not that great right now. They're evolving as we would expect with, some things that we saw several years ago. She's an old girl. But that's going to affect her mobility and her strength and comfort. So we're just trying to watch and see what happens. And right now, as we've talked about, there is so much vocalization going on. I think the two groups right now are as light as they've ever been since the transitions happened. Initially when the transition happened with Mara being a little bit edgy with Bambi, everyone's a little bit more quiet. But over the months that followed, as they settled back into this new patterns and new little routines, new friendships, they all have an increased amount of levity, I think.
Well, I think Mara's energy is really intense during those situations. I mean, she just, you'll see her, like Bambi goes to get her food and Mara's like really watching her. And it's like, you can feel how intensely, she's paying attention to her and that she's contemplating like following her. And you're like, what are you doing? And most of the time, if you catch it and call it out, and of course it's during feed, she'll go the other way, but she can have a significant intensity to her. And then, of course, you have on the other side of it Bambi, who then had her feelings hurt. and was upset because she does, or did, she probably still does, love Mara, and didn't really seem to understand why Mara didn't really love her anymore. So I think both sides had specifics that were throwing everything off balance. But I think Bambi definitely, with having Maia and the relationship she has with Guille, that's all balanced out for her. She's not looking for Mara the way she used to. And even when they're in the yards right next to each other, she's not generally trying to engage with her or looking for attention from her anymore. So I think that all mellowed out, and then Mara's edge came off. So I think everybody's just a little lighter.
Yeah, initially Bambi, when they are really close, a lot of times Bambi will have head up and look over with exciting that they're coming over, and then she kind of switches that off. And Mara does play into that too. Mara's energy. There's been times when they're in a separate yard and Mara starts doing that stalker energy a little bit, and Bambi keys off of it right away. She just steps away, but she's in a separate yard. But indications that if we did have them together, Mara just hasn't resolved that yet. And what's it going to take to resolve that internal struggle that we don't understand what the origin was? So, yeah, I mean that's the nature of captivity, the nature of what we do. We've said it 1,000 times over. We're putting a bunch of solitary, non-related elephants in together and say, here's your family. And the beauty about sanctuary is they have the space to be able to walk away. They have the space to be able to do that. And we have the space to be able to separate them as needed without them being isolated into a small area. They still have notable space to be able to explore and wander.
You mentioned giving Bambi her eye drops just now. She's got cataracts, for listeners who don't know.
They're still slowly progressing. I mean, her left eye, we think she only saw light and shadows when she got here, so that's not going to get better. And then her right eye started to slowly develop its own cataract and has been slowly getting worse over time. So, we're not 100% sure how much she can actually see. A lot of vision tests that you do at the doctor are based on your response. Is this clearer or is this clearer? Which one of these looks better? You can't do that with them. So, I mean, all the eye exams we do don't really tell us. They give us an idea of how progressed things are, but don't allow us to be able to gauge 100% what she can see and what she can't. And I think sometimes she seems worse than others. Like sometimes when she reaches out, I mean, she's not even close to where she should be. And other times she seems much better with it.
There's times that she, you're calling her down the fence line because to get her to move a little bit, and she stops and reaches her trunk out, and you're still 6 meters away. And she's like, here, I'm ready for my food. It's like, no, I'm further up here. You call her again, then she takes another few steps and reaches her trunk out again. I think she seems to be starting to use her hearing a lot more for that location, because even though their eyesight is not the most prominent, they are using their eyesight and their vision a lot when we are in close proximity. But I think she's starting to adapt to using sound much more significantly than she used to gauge where we are. She's not as far off when she reaches her trunk out sometimes, and sometimes she reaches her trunk out thinking that you're further away from the fence, and she touches you and she didn't expect you to be there yet, and she recoils her trunk real quickly. And just realizing that you were closer than she thought. I mean, there's a lot of indications that she doesn't see well at all. Almost nothing from the left side, right side. It really depends on the time of day, how much sunlight it is. If there's a lot of sunlight, she seems to see less. She seems to gain more comfort towards the end of the day. She seems more relaxed at the end of the day and into the evening.
Yeah, I remember when she first came, how surprised we were that she didn't seem to supplement her vision loss with hearing, especially with the species and how centered around smell and sound that they are. But she really didn't seem super adapted that way when she showed up. But
we've talked about that before, especially with their hearing and that type of vocalization. That is the infrasonic, the rumbles, the low frequency. That they almost seem not to know how to use it. And we saw it in Tennessee. We've seen it here sometimes where they're rumbling, huge, giant rumbles, and they're walking the wrong direction.
I think the girls in Tennessee were much worse.
They were definitely worse.
Much worse. Oh my God, they were terrible.
It was, yeah. It happened on many occasions with Sissy and Wink, and also with Shirley and Jenny. Mm-hmm. But if you think about what captivity has done to that, I mean, it's like the whales in the swimming pool. Their echolocation of bouncing off the walls and reverberating back to them. With elephants, okay, rumbling back and forth. What's that going to do? Who am I going to call? The train is the closest thing that makes that type of rumble, the type of frequency, or a big tractor, but that's not communication. That's just noise, so they learn not to rely on that and learn not to tap into that, especially with the overstimulation of noise in so many zoos and, in the middle of a city with highways and horns and vibrations that, they're just not as adept to listening to the nuance of sound as they would have been if they lived in the wild.
Talking of daily routines and habits for listeners who maybe are new to the podcast and new to your work, what is like a typical day and the day of the ladies look like? Do they each have certain routines? Do they like to, I don't know, go for a swim first or go for a mud bath first, or do they come to have some supplementary snacks?
Yeah, their routine is a little bit centered around our routine to a certain degree. We try not to influence too much what they do, but we do have a morning and evening feeding are the primary two, and that is to give them the medication supplementations, first thing in the morning, which is around 8 o'clock. And then around 4:30, and we do another supplemental feeding. If they need more throughout the day, we will, depending on the status of each elephant. And then after the 8 o'clock feeding, we normally do treatments, trainings, depending on what is needed, footwork, foot soaks, Bambi's eye drops three times a day. So Bambi also gets a little lunch right now because of her physical condition. So she also gets lunch. But in between that, it really just depends on the day. Sometimes it's wandering off. Sometimes it's hanging out and sleeping by the fence early in the morning. Sometimes they're nowhere to be seen many times, and then they know that we are all starting to come and get active between 7 and 8, so they start coming out of the woods and out of the shadows and coming over. Sometimes we arrive in the morning and they're already in the mud, depending on how sunny and warm it is, or depending on the rain, they're already laying in the mud wallows. So their routine around that surrounds our feedings, that varies all the time. That varies on their energy level. That varies on how much they partied the night before. We see a lot of hungover elephants here, where, early or mid-morning, they're like, okay, we're done. We need a nap, and they're just ready to fall asleep. So that varies. I mean, there's so much that they are in control of, and where they want to do and where they want to go, what they want to do, and environmentally influenced, certainly.
And do any of them react specifically to the wildlife in your sanctuary as well? Our tapirs, I think, are more nocturnal. Are they nocturnal, or is there like an anteater that might sort of go across the habitat? Are they frightened or scared by wildlife, or do they just sort of take it in their stride, ignore them? Have you ever been able to see that?
Yeah, I think it depends on how much they've been startled by whatever is coming out of the bushes. If they realized it was coming, I think we definitely hear the crazy trumpets at night, which we don't always know what the instigating factor is. But sometimes there's like this, very expressive, very acute, almost, forceful trumpet that comes out of nowhere. And sometimes we think those are because of a wildlife encounter. Is that because they're afraid of it, or did they just get startled? Coming across a snake. That I'm fine with snakes, but when you're walking on a path and see a snake, there's that instantaneous little ooh, and I don't trumpet, but maybe that's what we don't know what the instigating factor is. Sometimes
you could.
I mean, we saw Guille along the fence line that one time on one of the night cameras. There were 2 fox that were along the fence and had been in the habitat, and they were kind of running around and clearly not fearful of her. Which entertained her because
they actually seemed to be instigating the play. I mean, they were provoking her a little bit, and they'd run in and out of the fence and run into the fence and walk up to her. She'd walk towards them or chase them a little bit. They'd run back out, and then they'd come back in. So
she's kicking out her back leg when they were nowhere near her. I mean, she's not going to hurt anything. They're like, 30 yards away, and she's kicking and being all spunky. It's like, okay.
And they're a little fox. I mean, they're maybe 20 kilos maximum. I mean, 15 kilos. I mean, they're tiny. They're small little animals. Can't cause any harm to an elephant. They're clearly not trying to hunt an elephant. So, the only thing that you can extrapolate is they're just being inquisitive, playful curious fox. So, and we see that with the birds too. We see the elephants, interacting and interacting, but cohabitating, and birds are really relatively close. They watch them. Haven't seen a tapir come by lately, but a lot of time.
To renegade Pushy, rehab breakout Pushy.
Yeah, that might be a different scenario. I think the wildlife's going to need to learn how to run a little faster. Like, wait a minute, those Asians are mellow. What are you all about?
Yeah, Africans are not slow.
Africans are definitely faster than Asians, so it'll be curious to see.
Oh, that's going to be so exciting when they come. Yes, I read that on your social media that Poopy has started her quarantine, so very exciting times. And talking of time, I can't believe we're running out of time. Well, you are, because you have lots of work to do, so I don't want to keep you longer than necessary. But as always, I could talk with you for ages, and Scott can talk forever, and we all could love to listen to Scott, but also to you, Kat, forever. But I have to let you go. So what have you got planned for this afternoon?
Crying as I'm embarrassed again how much I talk.
No.
Water systems. The water tanks are wrapped up, and it was almost ready to go. We were just putting last touches on the water system in Africa. So I got to go test the 2 well sources and make sure that everything's pumping up there just fine, flush out the water pipes. The water troughs are going in place, so we're going to be working on plumbing those. And we're going to do all that while playing in the rain, because it's lovely, lovely, lovely rainy afternoon.
I have to figure out about research projects. So,
Cat's stuck behind the computer while I go get saturated in the rain.
Yeah. It's not a bad day to not have to be out there. It's a cold rain. Most of the time the rain is nice, but today's the chilly rain, so I'll take my afternoon behind the computer today.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time, as always. Very precious. Much appreciated. So we'll catch up for our next recording. And until then, you two take care.
Thank you, Nadia. It's always a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye. That's all that we have time for this week. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. And if you did, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Another great zero-cost way to support us is by leaving a 5-star rating or a glowing review, as this helps other people discover the podcast. Thank you so much, and until we meet up in 2 weeks' time, take care.